Welcome to Jets Talk. My name is Ryan. I'll be your pilot today. Boys and girls, Joe Douglas just did his combine press conference for the New York Jets. Wanted to break down some of the notes that I took, get some of your thoughts as well. Figure I'll do this for about 20 minutes or so, and then it's off to the Pat McAfee show to see what happens potentially with Mr. Aaron Rodgers. So, first things first, started off the press conference in a pretty funny way. I actually enjoyed this. This was Joe Douglas coming out and said, I'm sure we're going to have a bunch of questions about the safety position. And it was just like, this guy can read the room. I understand the conversation's always going to revolve around the quarterback. But I thought that was interesting. I really liked that aspect of it. As far as, the different comments he made, the only quarterback he spoke on was Derek Carr because it's the only one that we're able to talk on right now. He's a free agent. You're allowed to discuss him. You're not allowed to talk about other players that are on under other teams. Connor Hughes did ask a very interesting question. I didn't catch the full piece of it, but it was something along the lines of waiting. How do you decide if you want to wait for a player that may become available or make the decision that may be best for the Jets at this particular point in time right now? And I think that's a really good question from Connor Hughes, and the way Joe Douglas answered it, I'll have the clip for the Talkin' Jets panel tonight, but there was a smile on Joe Douglas's face where he's just like, we're going to do what's right for the Jets, and that's going to be the way they kind of handle that. Who knows? We don't know what happens with Aaron Rodgers. The comments that we heard from the Packers GM earlier today, I brought those up. I'll bring them up again for anyone that missed that. Basically, nope, that's not it. That's my my homepage. I should probably mix this. All right, here we go. Basically, they were saying that Aaron Rodgers has not talked to the Packers brass. They have not had discussions as far as, is Rodgers coming back or is he staying in Green Bay? Is he retiring? What's going on? But it seems like the Packers have had discussions as far as other teams. I think the Packers are probably looking to move on, but we'll hear hopefully from Rodgers today. Let's see. As far as the Carr visit, what did Joe Douglas have to say? He said it was a fantastic visit. Obviously the personality was a big thing for them. They know the accuracy. They know all the accolades that Carr has had on the field, but actually meeting the person, I think, was really important for them, and knowing how he could fit in to their organization. You said no timetable as far as when they're going to make a move on a quarterback. They would like to make that soon. They have not even discussed cutting players yet. It seems like they're waiting till after the combine, which tells me they should have a decision just after the combine as to which direction they're going to go, whether that be Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers, because you're going to have to maneuver the cap in different ways based on probably what that quarterback wants to some capacity. So hopefully we figure that out pretty soon. He mentioned Derek Carr, high-level producer, highly competitive, decision-making and accuracy, both things that he chimed in on. Carr's going through the process this first time being a free agent, and he wants to do what's in the best interest of him and his family, so he's going to do his due diligence. Obviously, meeting with the Carolina Panthers and the Saints and the Jets again while he's in Indianapolis is the right thing to do for him. Now, those are the only teams that we've heard he's going to meet with. There are potentially other teams that could be on that list or added to that list. They are looking at every option, the New York Jets are, in terms of quarterback, as possibly giving up picks. They have talked to other GMs about potential situations going on. I'm sure Joe Douglas is doing all his due diligence across the board. He did make an interesting comment about the NIL deals. So for those of you guys that aren't quite sure what that is, it's the name, image, likeness deals that are involved in college sports now, where college athletes aren't getting paid by the schools. They're getting paid by, boosters or maybe a car dealership that wants to use them for advertising. Basically, they can make money off their name. So this is the first time that athletes are making money in college and then going to the NFL. So Douglas mentioned that there's probably going to be guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds, or guys that are possibly on that roster bubble that may have NIL deals in college. They may not go into the draft because they can make a little bit of money off the NIL deal anyway. I think that's an interesting thought process because they get an extra year of experience. The really interesting piece of the whole puzzle, I shouldn't say the whole puzzle, but of that particular NIL conversation, Douglas said we get to see how these players react when they get money. And that's a really interesting thought process or conundrum, because I know growing up, my parents always told me, if someone wins the lottery, it amplifies who they are more than creates this new kind of monster. So, if you give a quarterback a ton of money or any player a ton of money, you have to know how they're going to use that money, and are you still going to have the same player after they wound up getting paid? Historically, Albert Haynesworth gets a monster contract from the Redskins. He basically retires on the field. Muhammad Wilkerson for the Jets gets a monster contract from the Jets. Doesn't play so well on the field. So how do they handle when they get money, the players? And by having the NIL deals, you almost see that to an extent, especially with the top end guys. Like if you're talking about quarterbacks, wide receivers, like the flashy guys that would be going in the top ends of the draft, they're going to have NIL deals. So you at least have that little bit of insight into who is this person. Who are we bringing into the organization? What are they going to be about? Because you don't want to sign someone who's worked hard their whole life, but now that they got money, I could go out. Maybe I order a bunch of food. I'm eating pancakes or something like that, Mekhi Becton. not working out. No, I'm kidding. Becton's looking good. Becton's posted another selfie today of him in the mirror. He's going to be looking good. Joe Douglas did mention the recoveries of Mekhi Becton, Breece Hall, and AVT. They are all doing great. They're expecting to have them back for the beginning part of the season next year. But yeah, Breece is doing great, and everyone else is looking good. So that makes me feel good. Obviously, they're going to have a lot of fluctuation on the offensive line this upcoming season. And I shouldn't say a lot of fluctuation, but they want stability, so there's not a lot of fluctuation throughout the season. So Mekhi Becton obviously having some injuries the last 2 seasons. They want to get that all ironed out. As far as Zach, they said they still have high hope for Zach. There's still a lot of there's that ceiling that they keep on talking about. They say he has a high ceiling. They say Rodgers said, or not Rodgers, screwing up my names now. Joe Douglas said players who love to play the game and play their tails off, generally in his experience, has seen those players hit their ceilings. So to me, I don't know. This could be a whole nothing burger, because obviously you're not going to give away any plans or talk poorly about any players in any capacity. But it seems like the Jets do want to support Zach, and it seems like the idea of, he still has that massive upside. The athletic gifts that we saw, the arm strength, the escapability, I think those are key things that Joe Douglas looks at and says, that can be a winner if he figures it all out. And we got to pay him anyway, so why are we going to, kick the can down the road and not, I don't know. You don't want to like trade him right off the bat. I would hold on to him. I think they still believe in him, and I think whatever the quarterback move is will be in conjunction with how they feel about Zach. So Rodgers, we've been talking 1 year, 2 years with him. He retires, then hopefully you get maybe the next 10 years from Zach. With Carr, everyone's kind of been predicting 5-6 year contracts. For me, when I made my first video on this channel, it was about how the Jets should sign Kirk Cousins to a 5 or 6 year contract. And I was stunned when he wound up signing just a 3-year contract. And then I started thinking, well, if you're a quarterback who's protected by all these different penalties and rules within the game that you're not allowed to touch the guy, and you're known for being healthy. Derek Carr, 142 games out of 144 games. If you're Derek Carr, wouldn't you want to give yourself the best opportunity to win, which I do think is with the Jets, and make a lot of money, which I do think is with the Jets? If he signs somewhere else, I think he's banking on the long term. I think if he were to sign with the Jets, he could sign a 2-year contract and then hit free agency, or at least force the Jets to renegotiate in that 3rd year if they don't decide to move on with Zach Wilson. And he could be the short-term answer and the long-term answer. So I haven't heard a whole lot of people talk about this, just because everyone's, so on board with, Derek Carr and what's going to wind up happening with Rodgers and everything going back and forth. And it seems like the majority of the fan base at this point is kind of sick of Rodgers, which is funny because he's not even in green and white yet. The big piece of the whole puzzle for Joe Douglas's press conference was one of the final things that he said, and he said, right player, right price for the short term and the long term. So I do think that Carr could be that option for the short and long term. I think you could spin it in a way where Carr could be, the short term and Zach is the long term and then Carr goes elsewhere, or Carr is the short and then the long term. And then I think with Rodgers or any other quarterback that you're probably going to be bringing in when you talk about like the Jimmy G's or the Ryan Tannehills of the world, you're talking about a 2-year window with that bridge quarterback then leading into Zach Wilson. Now, for me, I do feel like the Jets want to redshirt Zach Wilson. I don't think they want to have him play at all next year. I think they just want to have him hit the little mental reset, work with Ruckert and all the guys on the, the backups, kind of get a feel for that side of things and watch how a veteran quarterback prepares throughout his day. So that was really the gist of it that I got. As far as making moves and Douglas wanting to wait till after the combine to release some players or create some salary cap space, I think it makes a ton of sense. I would bring in the quarterback first and allow them to be part of that decision-making process. I think that is a nice sell for whoever you're trying to get. Obviously you're going to do what's in the best interest of the Jets and all that good jazz. But if you think that you can, convince a quarterback to come here because they might be able to select if they want to have a Braxton Berrios and a Corey Davis maybe on restructured contracts a little bit cheaper, or if they would like to maybe bring in someone from outside. Maybe there's a player that they've played with in their past or that they're kind of eyeballing. Maybe there's a Cortland Sutton out there who may eventually be on the trade market. So there's a lot of things that could really end up happening here, and I like the right player, right price mentality because we saw that last year in free agency, and even though it didn't work out with Laken Tomlinson, I don't believe that's entirely, some things just don't work out. I mean, the guy was a Pro Bowler last year and winds up forgetting how to block this year, so very, very odd. But when you look at the free agency class from last year, the Jets wanted players that wanted to be here. I don't think there should be any contract offer until they know the player wants to be here. Oddly enough, what's interesting, let's see, where did I see? When I think it was, I don't know if it was Hughes, someone asked, did you offer a contract to Derek Carr? And Joe Douglas said, I'm not going to comment on contract negotiations, which is the line you should always give regardless. It does make people wonder, like, well, did he make an offer? Because we were always, we heard you could be a first ballot Hall of Famer here. And that was like the little catch kind of a thing. But did they make an offer? Is there something going on behind the scenes? I would be surprised if the Jets actually made a contract offer to Derek Carr. I think they probably, maybe talked a little bit of loose numbers, but it seems like Derek Carr wants to go to the best fit, and it seems like the Jets want the best fit. And as I sort of move around all these pieces and I see where the Jets could possibly be going, I like Carr. I like Carr as an option. I think it makes a ton of sense for the New York Jets. You don't have to give up your draft picks, and that's something. Right player, right price. It's not just the contract that you're giving him, because if you're going with a Derek Carr, you're sacrificing a little more cap space in the now to get your potentially longer-term quarterback, and you're going to have to utilize all your draft picks to build out the rest of the roster, or continue to build out the rest of the roster. If you're going with a Rodgers, because of the structure of his cap hit, you're not getting hit with the dead cap until after Rodgers is gone. So you're kind of hitting the accelerator on more of a Super Bowl caliber push this year, where Carr, maybe the expectation is playoffs. And that's another thing too, the expectation level. If you're Rodgers and you go to a new team, you have to be the guy that's going to bring that team a Super Bowl. That's why you're moving on. Now, in the event the Packers want to move on from Rodgers, then it's not his decision. Maybe that tempers a little bit of those expectations, but if he comes to New York, we're thinking Super Bowl all day. I know I am. And that type of expectation on someone who's 39 years old, learning a new city, it does scare me. It definitely does. Now, 45 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, I could get over that real quick. But I don't know. The personality side of things with Carr, with Rodgers, is where I find myself kind of divided. And I do really like everything that Carr provides from a mental standpoint. Like, I like when a quarterback takes a little bit less money because it makes everyone else kind of fall in line behind them. Like, if the top dog isn't taking the top amount of money, then, not that contract negotiations aren't, all singular, but I think there's a better precedent for other guys to take slightly less money to keep the team together than maybe a player like, I don't want to say like a Rodgers, where he has his team over a barrel all last year and then, forces them to give him a monster contract. Now he's basically going to force his way out of Green Bay, or at least that's where it sort of seems like it's headed. I don't know. There is a little concern with me for what could rub off from Rodgers being in New York and how it could go sideways. But the astronomical upside is there. With Carr, you're hoping on everything going the right direction. But stability is kind of nice. Like, if we get Rodgers, we're going through this same song and dance that we're going through right now for the next 2 off seasons, which is sort of okay for content creation, but really not great for like team building and wanting to know who your players are going to be. Like, say as much crap as you want about Eli Manning, but the fact that that guy was available all the damn time and you knew who was going to be starter for you every single week, that is worth its weight in gold. And to me, Carr and Rodgers both provide that same amount of stability from the quarterback position, with the exception of Rodgers possibly retiring. And that's the piece that doesn't quite make sense. If Rodgers says like, yo, I'm in for 2 years at least, like, let's ball out, let's go get a ring. Like, that's what I want him to come out and say. If he's just like trying to collect a paycheck, he's trying to collect that $110 million over the course of the next 2 years, that I don't want to pay a guy to retire on the field and then get whacked and saddled with his dead cap hit afterwards. So price-wise, Rodgers and his price, when does that become a factor? If the Jets don't have to give up a first-round pick for Aaron Rodgers, does that lean you more towards Aaron Rodgers? Because now all of a sudden you have the 13 pick. You can either make the selection at 13, you could trade down from 13, get some more picks. There's an interesting conversation that has to be had, and asset allocation is absolutely massive, especially for Joe Douglas. That's his whole damn job. So overall, I don't think we got a crazy ton from Joe Douglas. I did like the right price, or right player, right price comment. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's almost a signal to the Packers like, hey, if you're going to drag us through the mud and we think we're one of the only teams that you could be trading this quarterback to, maybe Joe Douglas lowers his offer price. If the Packers want too much, I think the Jets are going to pivot to Carr. I think there's a lot of people in the Jets building right now who do like Derek Carr. I think that is the top option for a lot of people. And I think you can continue building that way. And personally, I find myself gravitating to Carr more and more as each day goes on. But who knows? Maybe Rodgers comes back and I lose my cool in the next half hour or so. But guys, I'm going to hop off here. Those were my rough thoughts on the Joe Douglas press conference. I'm going to go live once I hear a little bit more from Aaron Rodgers if he winds up making a decision today as far as returning. We'll see. Let me know all your comments down below in the comment section. What do you think about Joe Douglas' press conference? Do you think we got anything of value out of it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.